Episode number 241, Flawless Marrow. Cain fell to the ground and began to bleed from every hole on his face as his body could not stop shivering. The internal damage was so massive that there was severe organ failure. Still, even after all that, there was a smile on his face since he had one. Just as Cain was about to slip into unconsciousness, a force in the room grabbed his body, bringing him into the center of the room and raising him into the air. In the next second, the corpse of the Sod Avatar shattered into countless dots of red light that flashed toward Cain's chest, piercing his skin and traveling across his body all the way to the rebirth heart. Cain could do nothing and fell unconscious. The red dots of light inside his heart began to fuse into what seemed to be a small machete the size of a grain of rice. At that point, Cain woke up due to the sudden stream of information that flooded his mind. It was an incredibly profound cultivation technique, the mightiest he had seen in his entire life. Not only did it have a path to train his astral wave, but there were also several techniques in it, including every single one that the Sod Avatar used during their fight. However, Cain did not have time to focus on it since the machete inside his heart began to spin, drawing a massive amount of extremely pure wave and vitality into his body. Golden streams emerged from every corner of the room and flooded Cain's body. An expression of utter comfort appeared on Cain's face as the energy healed his wounds and was potent enough to regrow his lost right hand. That was not all it did, since the energy also tempered his flesh and blood while purifying his energy pool. Second gear had done severe internal damage, one so dire that Cain could have perished in his sleep even with a vitality equal to a wave champion, but the energy mended everything. Once all his wounds were gone and his energy pool was full again, Cain felt his body growing stronger, and then it came. At the start, it began as an itch, but then it grew to a horrible sensation as every pore of his body opened up, adjusting. Then it came time for the bones, all trembling as if they were being squeezed, leading to cracks. All the internal damage healed instantly as the invisible force kept exerting a monstrous pressure on the bones, and it was not long before Cain began to sweat blood. The feeling was horrible, but Cain could not hide the thrill and excitement in his heart as the force was purging the filth in his body, making him go through the most vigorous marrow washing of his entire life. After 5 hours, the machete inside Cain's heart stopped spinning, and the dimension no longer sent any more energy into his body. Cain's body slowly descended to the ground, and the expression on his face was one of absolute serenity. He had never felt more immaculate than at this moment. It was as if a layer of filth that hindered his mind and body went away.
System scan me.
The absolute life form system followed the order, and an accurate measure of Cain's constitution reached his mind in a few moments. Scan of vessel completed. Name, Cain Lorifa. Race, Godslayer humankind. Path of power, astral rebirth level 8 wave warrior. Lineage, lightning lupus. Wave talent, low tier 7, low tier 7. Stats: strength 9, 6, 10. Agility 7, 7, 7.9. Vitality 12, 4, 13.1. Wave 7, 7, 8.1. Blood energy 11, 4, 11.8. Marrow washing 96% completion. Note: wave virus inside vessel enhanced wave talent by 17.2%. Cain had advanced to level 8 less than 3 weeks ago, so there was no significant change in his physical stats, but he did not care about any of that since the only number in his mind was 96. Due to the dimension's energy, he achieved flawless marrow. Cultivators like Amos and William, who achieved flawless marrow before becoming wave champions, usually did it by tapping into the final marrow washing during their ascension to wave champion. However, Cain was only a level 8 wave warrior. He had a lot of time and opportunities to improve his marrow washing, meaning there was a chance he could achieve the mythical 100% marrow washing. Theia was a name for someone that reached 100% marrow washing, void marrow. For someone with void marrow, Wave King was nothing special and granted a foundation strong enough to rise into the 4th cultivation rank. It was so unique that there was no record of it in the military academy or in the information Apex had gathered. Cain learned about void marrow from the information the machete inside the rebirth heart implanted in his mind. He took a deep breath, calming the excitement in his heart, and then focused on the saint technique. It was extremely broad and explained in detail how to advance through Wave Warrior, Wave Champion, Wave King, and even how to tackle the realm that came next. All the Sod Avatar's techniques were now open for his training, with many more that could be acquired once he rose to Wave Champion.
Sonic Blade Fusion.
That was the name of the Saint cultivation technique, and to Kane's surprise, it was not just for astral rebirth cultivation, since there was a version for essence evolution cultivators that was just as strong. Although it was a little surprising, it made sense since there was no way the dimension would have known who would claim the inheritance. It would have been very weird if an essence evolution cultivator had surpassed all others but could not train the Saint cultivation technique. Some might think that Kane could now attempt to train the essence evolution path of power, becoming an astral essence dual cultivator, but things were not so simple. It was common knowledge that simultaneously training both paths of power would only lead to failure. First of all would be the lack of time and resources, especially for young people. There was also the fact that there was no point in training both paths if they were not at the same level. The assistance, a level 9 essence warrior cultivation, could give a middle astral wave champion was practically nothing. Techniques and spells require a specific type of wave, so it would not help your energy pool have two types of wave inside your body. However, neither of those problems was impossible to resolve. Someone talented and wealthy enough could travel the path of dual cultivation. Although it would take a little more time to advance through the ranks, they would be extremely powerful. According to Sonic Blade Fusion, dual cultivation was taboo because becoming a titan in both paths would be impossible. You must pick one. As for a reason cultivators could not become a titan in both paths, Sonic Blade Fusion did not give too many details other than the fact that you have only one soul. Imagine going through all the effort to raise both paths to the absolute peak, one step away from becoming a titan in each of them, but having to pick one and forget about the other. Would it not have been better to focus all your effort on a single path, making it even stronger? Kane allowed his mind to lose itself in the information, as the feeling of improving his knowledge of cultivation was genuinely fantastic. He was not bothered by the warning about dual cultivation inside the technique since he had never considered that path. Kane did not sell himself short and knew he was a divine genius in the ego eternal path of power and very talented in the astral rebirth path of power, but it took everything he had just to get a chance to void marrow. Trying to achieve that while also focusing his mind on the laws without diminishing his cultivation speed would be nearly impossible. Instead of being average in two things, it was better to be great in a single one. After going through all the information, Kane extended his right hand, and a machete materialized in his grasp. It was similar to the one he used during the first two trials, but much better. He could load as much of his astral wave as he wanted into the weapon, and this one would improve its quantity and quality, allowing the hacking power to rise exponentially. Kane needed to use the machete as a catalyst to train Sonic Blade Fusion. All the life wave that reached his rebirth heart would be refined first by the machete, improving his cultivation speed, and it was also needed to practice several techniques.
They say that all good weapons deserve a name. Since we reached this point by killing everything in our path, I think I should call you Slaughter. You suck at names.
Kane's hot apexes rebuke but did not care. He knew he was not good with names, but it was not like he would go around saying it. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 242, Leaving the Dimension. Kane did not waste time, sending Slaughter back into his rebirth heart before taking several wave champion beasts' hearts from his space ring. He drove the life wave and the surroundings into his heart, and the machete began to spin, improving the speed at which the energy transformed into astral wave, but that was far from all. Sonic Blade Fusion not only improved your cultivation speed, but at the same time, it also tempered your body. Small sonic booms emerged from the machete, traveling through the body and tempering Kane's flesh and blood. Those vibrations not only strengthened Kane's flesh and blood, but also stimulated his cells, improving his vitality and self-healing abilities. Kane mastered the first level of Sonic Blade Fusion very quickly, as if he was relearning something he had forgotten. He had never trained in the technique or even something related to the energy of sound, but it seemed that he gained some of the Sod Avatar's comprehension. Once he found his rhythm, Cain began to devour the blood from all those hearts and use their blood energy to alter the molecular structure in his right hand. Although the right hand he recovered, thanks to the dimension's power, was just as good as the original, it lacked the molecular tempering of training blood hand, forcing Cain to do it all over again. Luckily, since he had already mastered the metamorphosis, it only took him 5 hours to finish, and there was good news. After finishing the metamorphosis of the finger, Cain was able to continue with the knuckles, then extend it to the rest of the hand. That meant Cain advanced to the third level of Blood Hand, Blood Fist. Cain had been stuck at the second level for quite a while now, unable to carry on since Blood Fist required the constitution of a wave champion or be a wave warrior with flawless marrow. There was excitement and thrill in Cain's eyes as he carried on with the transformation, doing it with both hands. He only stopped after 9 hours and had changed half of the hand since that was his limit. Cain needed more training if he wanted to change both hands entirely. After that was over, Cain turned his focus to the skills and abilities inscribed in Sonic Blade Fusion, but he was not able to carry on due to exhaustion. The battle with the Sod Avatar pushed his mind and focus to the limit, and even if the energy of the dimension could heal his body and restore his stamina, the mental strain was still there. Cain lay on the ground, closed his eyes, and fell asleep in seconds. He stood like that for nearly 10 hours before finally waking up, and when he did, his mind was sharper than ever. The dimension had already sent an intent to Cain's mind, and he knew that if he wanted to leave, he just had to say it. That would expel him and everybody else from this place, back to Blade Mountain. There was no reason to leave right away since he could train in peace inside the room, and there were no threats. Not wanting to waste time, he stood up and began to practice the technique that the Sod Avatar deployed during their battle. Cain ran from one side of the room to the other, and his speed was improving with every second as small sonic booms emerged from the sole of his feet. The name of the skill was Sonic Dash, which allowed the Sod Avatar to achieve instant acceleration at supersonic speed. It did not require any special footwork and could activate in the air, allowing the user to deploy an even better version of Airwalk. Sonic Dash was the one skill that Cain wanted to master more than any of the others right now, and the reason for that was simple. Several powerhouses were bound to be waiting for him and the other youths once they left the dimension. Cain knew that some of those people might want to wrestle away the inheritance from whoever gained it, and would not care if they had to kill someone to get it. Of course, he was sure that Zarak and other powerhouses of the Lightning Imperial fort would also be there and offer him their protection. Still, he did not want to put his life in the hands of others if there was an alternative. After nearly a day of training, Cain's mastery over Sonic Dash became as good as the one from the Sod Avatar. He could achieve an instant acceleration at the speed of sound, and that was without second gear active. If he used both simultaneously, his agility could equal or even surpass that of peak wave champions. Following the mastery of Sonic Dash, Cain practiced the technique that altered the state of the wave cloak, making it vibrate at a certain rhythm that allowed it to act as a buffer against physical attacks. The name of the ability was Sonic Armor. It was easier to master than Sonic Dash, as it only required altering the state of your wave cloak using wave transformation. Cain wanted to continue his training, but suddenly, the dimension began to tremble. Some people are getting impatient. It was clear to Cain that someone wanted to see what was happening inside the dimension. Although the portal should have vanished, Cain knew that if a cultivator was powerful enough, they could make their own path by force. There were still Sonic Fists, Sonic Clones, Sonic Bullet, and Sonic Zero that Cain needed to train, but he would do that after leaving this place. Delaying things would not help, and taking the challenges head-on was better. I am ready. As soon as that thought appeared in Cain's mind, an invisible force got hold of every youth inside the dimension, dead or alive, and teleported them out. Cain could focus much faster than the last time he was teleported due to the improvements in his soul force and willpower, and saw that he and the others appeared on Blade Mountain's foot. He immediately perceived several immensely powerful figures in the sky looking down on them. Still, all that ceased to matter when he saw that Dominic had appeared less than 20 meters away from him. It might have been a coincidence or an act from the consciousness that guided the inheritance, but it did not make a difference for Cain.
Boom.
Dominic's mind was still adjusting to the sudden change when he heard a sonic boom. The next second, a hand grabbed his head and pushed him into the ground with so much strength that it nearly left him unconscious. Before the Scion could mobilize his essence wave, a fist landed ferociously on his evolution car, paralyzing the energy pool. Cain had just pinned down Dominic to the ground, and his right hand transformed into a blood gem as he intended to blast the head of the Scion with a single punch. However, just as Cain was about to kill Dominic, a ferocious voice descended from the sky.
Damn mongrel, what do you think you are doing to my son?
Cain felt his eardrums trembling due to that powerful voice. He did not attack, but neither did he let go of Dominic. Instead, he looked to the sky and saw a middle-aged man unleashing a powerful aura that resembled a massive elemental storm. The man was 1 meter and 90 centimeters tall, with black hair and green eyes, holding 2 long swords in his hands, and covered by powerful gales that seemed capable of shattering buildings.
Dad, save me.
Dominic endured the pain and shouted to the sky. But he spoke no more as Cain began to squeeze his neck with so much strength that he could no longer breathe.
Mongrel, you dare to disobey the words of Alexander Martel.
A green force field descended from the sky as Alexander unleashed his ego wave and made it fall on top of Cain. It was so fast that Cain could not even see it, but the next second he felt a crushing pressure on his mind. Alexander's willpower sought to crush Cain's spirit and force this one to move away from Dominic. The rest of the youths that saw that immediately moved away. Even those with a good relationship with Cain did not dare to get close since there was nothing they could do when facing something like that. Fear, doubt, and a sense of submission sought to invade Cain's heart as he faced that green force field, but then a red light appeared in his eyes, making any shred of hesitation vanish. A powerful red force field emerged from Cain's brain. Although it was not strong enough to fend off Alexander's ego wave, it was able to protect Cain from it. Alexander's eyes widened when he saw Cain looking back at him without any form of fear, but before he could do anything else, a blue force field manifested in the distance. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 243, Middle Wave King S. Wilpor. The blue force field was even more potent than Alexander's, and while the middle-aged man was full of killing intent toward Cain, he could not distract himself and had to keep his focus on the enemy in the sky.
Zarek Valentine.
Zarak's aura exploded as he stared at Alexander, and his ego wave grew more and more powerful as if pushed against the green force field.
You dare to send your ego wave against my discipline.
The blue force field that emerged from Zarak's brain attained a relentless and ruthless aura as it grew chaotic and full of power, just like the ocean during a storm. Many powerhouses from noble families and other great powers were present, but the moment Zarak unleashed his power, over 90% pulled back. Things escalated to a point where they would only be making fools of themselves if they interfered. As for those that had the power to face Zarak, they chose to wait and see how the clash between those two ended. Alexander could not win in a clash of willpower against the pillar of the collapsing lightning sector and had to rely on his essence wave to improve the might of his green force field. Alexander could resist the blue force field by fusing his essence wave with the ego wave, but that fragile balance broke once Zarak made his astral wave burst at 5,000%. Just as the blue force field was about to overwhelm Alexander, an even mightier ego wave descended from above the duo. It was dark gray and was able to push back Zarak's ego wave easily. Blade Mountain trembled as the power of that gray force field stood at a level that it could break the earth apart. Zarak frowned as he saw that ancient and devious Wilpor. He looked to the sky and saw a man standing over 80,000 meters above the ground. The owner of that mighty dark fray force field that made Blade Mountain tremble was an old man with long gray hair, green eyes, and a malevolent expression. When the rest of the powerhouses saw that man, everybody pulled back since there was no one that could match him. Zarak had always displayed a fearless aura, but even he adopted a solemn attitude when he saw that old man. He was far from invincible, especially when facing people that had lived for thousands of years.
Martel family's high elder, the dark rock Sebastian Martel.
The old man's eyes grew sharp as he focused on Zarak, making his ego wave push with even more strength against the blue force field.
You are very talented, but you need another 500 years of cultivation before facing me.
The dark gray force field became nearly unstoppable once the old man fueled it with his astral wave. Kane's eyes widened as he saw that ego wave. It was so powerful that he could not even comprehend it, meaning that the willpower of the old man had surpassed the Wave King rank a long time ago. If things did not change, he would be in trouble even if he let go of Dominic. Luckily, just as it appeared that Zarak's blue force field was about to shatter under the pressure of the old man's willpower, a golden ego wave appeared. Along with that golden ego wave, another figure appeared in the sky. He was a man that looked like he was in his 20s, with short black hair, blue eyes, and monk robes covering his muscular body. The golden force field clashed against the dark gray one, making thunder clouds appear in the sky. Sebastian stared at the man with the golden force field, and a solemn expression appeared as he no longer showed any concern with Zarak.
The second pillar, Killer Buddha, Olivian Xerxes.
The old man's aura exploded as he uttered those words, and then the phantom of a giant dark eagle-like creature emerged behind him. His vitality burst with power, rejuvenating his body, as enormous dark wings appeared on his back.
Such a killing intent. I thought someone of your age would be more calm. Of course, if you want to take the path of blood, I am more than happy to accompany you.
The second pillar of the collapsing lightning sector continued smiling. Still, his eyes were sharp as he clasped his hand, unleashing a massive amount of essence wave that morphed into dozens of giant golden hands. Sebastian Martel and Olivian Xerxes were already legendary figures of the collapsing lightning sector, making the powerhouses that flood the sky look at them with awe and fear. The emergence of either would have made it impossible for anyone else to get their hands on the natural inheritance, but seeing both of them meant that they had to stay away, or they could get dragged into a clash in which they could die. Zarak could not focus on Alexander, but while he was stronger than this one, he limited himself to stop this one from doing anything rash. He was not afraid of a battle, but the collateral damage could lead to the death of all the youths on the ground, so he had to be careful. Alexander did not push things either. The High Elder was strong, but the second pillar from the collapsing sector was not a pushover. Sebastian stared at Olivian for a long time before sighing and looking toward Kane. Just seeing those eyes made Kane feel a suffocating pressure. It did not target his body, but was so powerful that it made it hard to breathe.
Let Dominic go and go away.
Those words made Kane's mind tremble, and the power in them was countless times stronger than those of Alexander. It had a hypnotic power that sought to compel Kane's actions. Dominic felt the grip over his neck losing up, and a small smile appeared on his face as he thought everything was over. However, dread filled his heart the next second when he saw how the red light in Kane's eyes exploded.
Fuck you.
Kane had lost the ability to think for a second, but his willpower exploded with power, breaking away the compulsion and allowing his rage to dictate his words. Sebastian trembled for a second, and a trail of blood leaked from the corner of his mouth as a sense of utter shock assaulted his heart. For Kane to have overcome his compulsion, the willpower of the young man must have already evolved to the middle wave king rank. Although it might seem there was not much difference between the willpower of the early and that of a middle wave king, the truth was the complete opposite. The higher your cultivation rank, the longer it takes to rise to the next level, and the same goes for the ego eternal path of power. Kane was still a 15-year-old boy, yet his willpower already reached the middle wave king. That cultivation speed in the ego eternal path of power was simply inconceivable, even if he was a divine genius born with an activated ego matrix. Before, Kane was only a bother to Sebastian, but now the eyes of the old man glowed with profound killing intent. There was clearly bad blood between the young man and Dominic, meaning he was an enemy of the Martel family. The old man focused on Kane, and when he felt the vibrant state of this one, the shock that assaulted his heart grew to a whole new level.
Flawless marrow.
Sebastian could not hide his voice, and when the other powerhouses heard it, they were just as shocked as the old man. They focused on Kane, and thanks to their high cultivation, they were able to see the signs, but even then, it was hard to believe it. Even Zarak, who knew that Cain's talent in the astral rebirth path of power, was shocked. A 15-year-old body with an ego wave equal to a middle wave king and who attained flawless marrow while being a level 8 wave warrior. How many years had passed since the collapsing lightning sector saw a monster like that? The feelings of the powerhouses were a complete contrast. Those like Olivian and Zarak could not be happier since Cain would become a great soldier in the future. However, those from the noble families look at Cain with hostility for the same reason. Cain would become a great pillar of the collapsing lightning fort, improving the might of the imperial lightning fort. Sebastian's killing intent exploded as he prepared to flash toward Cain. With his power, it would only require him to put a finger on the young man to kill this one. However, before the old man could even take a step forward, an even mightier killing intent emerged from Olivian. A dark fire melted the gold in hand around the pillar, and soon this one became skeletal and bathed in a toxic aura capable of poisoning the air.
Touch him and you will die.
Olivian's words were cold, and his essence wave burst with so much strength that the sky above Blade Mountain trembled. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 244, True Power. Sebastian stared at Olivian and could see the determination in the eyes of the collapsing lightning pillar. Although killing Cain would solve many future problems for the Martel family, he was not willing to bet his life on it.
HMPH.
The old man only sneered toward Olivian before turning toward Cain.
Brat, let go of Dominic now.
He did not use his willpower to force Cain since that would be useless, so he just shouted those orders. The killing intent in his eyes made it clear what would happen if Cain refused. Cain stared at Sebastian with rage before turning toward Zarak.
He killed one of my friends inside the dimension.
Zarak's eyes grew cold, and killing intent appeared in them. But as he stared at Sebastian, Alexander, and the rest of the powerhouses that came from noble families, he could not help but sigh.
There are a unique set of rules implemented by the Empire when it comes to inheritances, so we cannot use his actions to charge him with a crime. I understand the desire in your heart, but it is impossible to bring him with us without triggering a battle in which we could not keep you safe.
Cain's heart was full of killing intent, and the red light in his eyes grew stronger, but he understood the harsh truth. He was too weak to fulfill the desire in his heart and had to let Dominic go. In the end, it was all about power. It did not matter whether Dominic broke or not the rules of the Empire. What mattered was that Cain lacked the strength to face the powerhouses of the Martel family.
Although,
Cain sighed, and the red light weakened as he was about to let go of Dominic's neck when his eyes widened. Shock appeared on his face as he looked from one direction to the other. Sebastian, Olivian, Alexander, and Zarak were confused by Cain's behavior. It seemed he was looking for someone, but no one was around him. The shock and confusion on Cain's face did not last for long, and soon a cold smile appeared as he turned toward Dominic.
goodbye.
Absolute terror appeared on Dominic's face as he saw Cain's hand turned into a blood gem before falling on his head with monstrous power.
Boom.
Dominic's head could not resist Cain's punch and exploded like a balloon full of blood. Silence reigned as people found it hard to believe what they just saw. Cain killed Dominic by blowing this one head under the gaze of two powerhouses of the Martel family.
Bastard.
The silence did not last for long as Alexander roared in rage when he saw the death of his son. His essence wave exploded as the wings on his back fragmented into thousands of small blades that flashed toward Zarak while he dived with all his power. Zarak was able to react, making his astral wave burst with power while he flashed forward in order to stop Alexander's dive. He was able to shatter the blades coming his way with ease, but they slowed him down, which would prove deadly for Cain. Olivian frowned as he could not understand why Cain would do something so foolish, but explanations could come later. He needed to stop Alexander. However, Sebastian flashed forward, positioning himself between Alexander and the pillar. Even if Olivian were stronger, he would not be fast enough to save Cain. Alexander's eyes were bloodshot, full of grief and rage, as he used his blades to stop Zarak's march. Most of his essence wave focused on that, leaving only a little for him to carry an attack with his swords, but they would be enough to end Kane's life. None of the other powerhouses made a move and stared in silence as Alexander approached Kane. They either lacked the power or the will to protect the young man, and some even silently mock him for his rash behavior. Alexander showed a vicious grin as he hacked with both swords toward Kane's neck, fusing them into a single sharp energy blade that could sever a 300-meter-tall building in half. Kane saw the hatred in Alexander's eyes and felt the sharp edge of the energy blade on his neck, but that did not fade his smile. Just as the swords were about to reach Kane's neck, and everybody thought that the life of the monstrous genius was over, a red hand appeared and grabbed the energy blade. That attack's momentum vanished when that naked red hand grabbed the swords. It did more than just block or stop the attack, since it was able to nullify all kinetic energy in it. Alexander puked a mouthful of blood as he felt he had just clashed against a mountain at full speed, and his internal organs trembled. There was shock and dread in his eyes as he raised his gaze and looked at the man that stopped his attack. The man was nearly 3 meters tall, with golden eyes, long black hair, and a long beard. There was a large scar in the form of an X on the center of his face, and he wore a red robe that reached down to his arms. Sebastian, Olivian, and Zarak stared at the man with absolute shock since, despite the strength of their minds and perception, neither had noticed this one before. The second pillar of the collapsing lightning sector and the High Elder of the Model family had cultivation much higher than a Wave King, so it could only mean one thing for the man to be able to hide from them. They were in the presence of a Titan. Alexander also understood that, which is why there was so much fear in his heart. Any idea of fighting back vanished from his heart, since there was no way he could face a Titan.
Since when do people dare to attack children from my blood sea in my presence?
The man's voice was cold, as a golden light emerged from his eyes.
Alexander, run!
Sebastian could not help but shout as he felt the monstrous killing intent emerge from the Titan, but it was too late. Alexander could do nothing as the Titan's index finger touched his forehead. That was the last thing he saw before the back of his head exploded, throwing pieces of his brain in all directions. Silence reigned after the powerhouses in the sky saw Alexander's horrific death, but the man was not over. After killing Alexander, he vanished from Kane's side, only to appear right in front of Sebastian the next instant. Sebastian's eyes widened as he saw the man's entire arm transform into a red gem, driving toward him with the power to pulverize mountains. His instincts kicked in, allowing him to cover his body with his wings before channeling all his astral wave in them.
Boozaroom.
A shock wave that made the sky tremble occurred when the Titan's fists clashed with Sebastian's wings, sending this one flying away for over 20,000 kilometers before crashing against the ground, forming a massive crater. The destructive power in that fist did not fall behind a small atomic bomb of the old world, which is why it was so surprising to see Sebastian rising from the crater and flashing away at a speed that surpassed Mach 10. A flash of surprise appeared in Titan's eyes when he saw Sebastian flying away.
Impressive. I intended to end his life with that attack. The Dark Rock lineage is stronger than I thought.
The Titan could have chosen after Sebastian and would have caught this one after a few minutes, but he just shook his head. It was not worth the trouble. He then looked around at the rest of the powerhouses, and they all lowered their heads when they saw his eyes. The only ones that dared to look back were Olivian and Zarak.
Not bad. At least you dare to face the apex, unlike others that only look up to it.
The meaning of those words was clear to everybody, making the expression of the powerhouses that looked away turn sour, but the Titan was just talking out loud and did not care about them. The only one that really mattered to the Titan was the young man on the ground, looking at him with eyes full of willpower and determination.
Brat, remember our talk. Someone will come to pick you up in a month. Make sure all your affairs are in order by that time.
That was all the Titan said before taking a step forward and vanishing. Kane clenched his fists as he could not stop his heart from beating with more and more strength due to the excitement. That was the power to force your will on the world, ignore the consequences, and just do what you desire. That man did not care about the rules and codes of the Empire or the retribution of the Model family. He just went ahead and killed Alexander before trying to do the same with Sebastian. That power. I want it. The red light in Kane's eyes grew more and more powerful as the desire for strength in his heart evolved to a whole new level. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 245, Natural Holy Weapon. The red light in Cain's eyes exploded with power as he felt something growing inside him. A sense of warmth filled his mind, and he knew that its origin was no other than his alter ego. Bliss filled his heart since he knew that it finally happened. The alter ego had grown enough for him to start harnessing its power. Its name would come on its own over the next few days, and he could begin the training of his visualization technique. That feeling of growth came with something else, killing intent. Amos saw everything that happened, and the shock in his heart was hard to suppress. A few moments ago, there was a large smile on his face when he saw Alexander about to kill Cain, but now the middle-aged man lay in a puddle of blood with half his head blown up. When the scion from the Hellblazer family saw Cain's eyes turn in his direction, full of killing intent, he felt his instincts scream. There was not an ounce of confidence in his heart that he could face Cain, and no one would risk offending a Titan if this one killed him. Luckily for Amos, a man bathed in red flame appeared behind him the next second and grabbed him by the shoulder before both rose in the sky like a pillar of fire, only to vanish into the distance the next second. Cain frowned as he saw Amos leave, but there was nothing he could do about it. His wrath moved to another target, a corpse 50 meters away whose head was divided in two. A ball of supercondensed blood lightning appeared on his hand before being shot toward the corpse, pulverizing this one.
Useless.
An old man in the sky shouted in rage as he saw how Cain pulverized the body of a young man from his family. To the Godslayer Humanking, burying a corpse was the best type of rest that could be given, so cremation was considered dishonorable. Zarak also frowned when he saw that the corpse belonged to a soldier. He had seen how Cain did not get along with that person, but pulverizing the body was going too far. Cain looked at the old man in the sky and saw that while there was rage, there was also impotence since this one would not dare to touch him. He did not need to explain, but he did it anyway in the form of a video that he sent to the old man. The old man's eyes widened when he saw the contents of the video. Panic appeared on his face as he needed to speak with Cain so this one would not reveal it to anyone else, but it was too late since the video was sent to everybody present. In the video, it was clear how Uriel attacked William from the back and how Cain split the head of this one with a machete. Seeing those eyes full of scorn and disdain made the old man's face pale as he understood that his family's status would take a severe hit once the actions of Uriel spread out.
A good burial is too good for a traitorous piece of shit.
Those words made the old man tremble, and his heart burned with rage as he looked at Cain. He would like nothing more than to kill Cain, but he was sure Zarak would kill him if he made a single move.
HMPH.
The old man could do nothing but leave full of resentment. Cain did not care about the fact that Uriel's family would resent him. He would never allow a traitor to enjoy the glory of being a fallen soldier like his father.
Lurins.
It took less than a second, after that word to come from Cain's mouth, for Lurin to appear by his side with a respectful stance.
Hunt leader.
Lurin's voice was sharp as he spoke and waited for Cain's instructions. Cain stared at this one before handing over a space ring.
Give this to William's family along with his body. Find a good place for his tomb.
When Lurin got in possession of the space ring, he learned about its contents, and his eyes widened. The wealth inside was immense, and there were also dozens of wave viruses that could extend someone's lifespan. A sharp light appeared in Lurin's eyes as he thought of something.
Leader, Vice Captain William's family are commoners. Would it be right to relocate them to my family's fiefdom?
Cain glanced at Lurin for a moment before nodding. William's family would be safer in Lurin's household. He knew there were other reasons why Lurin proposed the idea, but he did not have a problem with any of them. Lurin smiled and bowed toward Cain before going to William's corpse, sending it into the space ring and moving away. After taking care of Uriel and William's corpses, Cain looked to those of Alexander and Dominic. He showed no hesitation before bending his knees to get closer to the duo and burying his hands into their chests. The powerhouses in the sky saw how Cain mercilessly devoured the blood inside the Jews' bodies. Seeing him commit an act of cannibalism so casually made it clear to the powerhouses just how ruthless the young man could be. Not even in death would he allow his enemies to rest. Dominic's body did not take long to lose all its blood, leaving nothing but a mummified shell, but Alexander was different. The amount of blood vitality in the corpse of a wave king was dozens, if not hundreds of times higher than that of a wave champion. There were many powerhouses in the sky looking at Cain. Although their cultivation was at a much higher stage than the young man, none dared to demand anything from this one, but they could not simply leave empty-handed.
Your name is Cain Lorifer, right?
Cain looked to the sky as he heard someone calling his name and saw it was the second pillar. He took his hands out of the corpses before clasping them and performing a small bow.
Yes, I must thank the pillar for his help during this ordeal. I will not forget it.
Olivian smiled as he heard those words and saw the seriousness on the young man's face. He was happy to see that Cain did not get cocky for having the backing of a Titan and remembered the person that helped him. The higher-ups in the Imperial Lightning Fort did not expect blind loyalty for the soldiers, only for these ones to remember who had their back when they were young and weak.
I did not do much. By the way, you were the one that obtained the natural inheritance birthed by Blade Mountain, right?
Those words made the eyes of the powerhouses in the sky grow sharp. Many shocking things had happened over the last few hours, but the reason they came here was for the natural inheritance. Cain was the most likely to have gained it since no one else that entered the dimension came close to his level, but maybe they were wrong. Cain glanced at the powerhouses in the sky and saw the intrigue in their eyes. Had it been before the appearance of the Titan, Olivian's question would have carried all sorts of problems, but now it was perfect. Since the people would find out about him gaining the natural inheritance sooner or later, it was better to reveal it now that no one would dare to put a hand over him. Cain extended his hand, allowing Slaughter to emerge from his heart and signaling for Olivian to take it. Olivian extended his hand, and the machete traveled to him at supersonic speed. Slaughter's aura immediately faded once it was in the hands of the second pillar, surprising the powerhouses. The weapon seemed to have wisdom and only showed its true power in Cain's hands. Olivian sent his ego wave into the weapon to analyze it and was able to see its true power and nature.
I see, it is a natural, holy weapon. It seems to work as the core of a cultivation technique, and from what I can see, it can guide you to apotheosis. An impressive weapon and an even mightier cultivation technique.
The greed in the powerhouses' eyes greatly diminished when they heard Olivian's words. All of them would have wanted to secure the weapon and cultivation technique for themselves since it would have improved their personal battle power, but a natural holy weapon was not worth risking their lives. Of course, there was a chance that Olivian could be lying, but if that were the case, then things would have escalated to the point that it surpassed their abilities. Cain saw the powerhouses leave after learning about his natural inheritance. The only ones that remained were Olivian and Zarak, and the Jew was waiting for him to return to the Imperial Lightning Fort. The trip to Blade Mountain and the hunt was over. End of Book 3, Journey Through the Blade Mountain. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 246, Moving Pieces. Book 4, A War That Painted the Sky Red. Magma covered a room, reaching a temperature so high that it would set ordinary people ablaze in a matter of seconds.
Boom. Boom. Boom.
Explosions echoed across the room as two individuals fought inside. Their battle style was similar, using glowing red flames that unleashed devastating explosions. However, while one had coldness and killing intent in his eyes, the other had confusion, terror, and unwillingness.
Please stop. Why are you doing this? I know things did not go as planned in Blade Mountain, but this is too much.
The one that shouted was no other than Amos. The young wave champion did all he could to face the opponent but was weaker in every field. He constantly looked for a way out, but the room was locked, making it so that no one could come in or out. Amos was a wave champion with flawless marrow, so one would expect the person that pushed him to that extreme to be another wave champion, but that would be wrong. The one that had Amos running was younger and a level 9 wave warrior, but his power was much greater.
Your behavior at Blade Mountain was clearly not what I commanded. You antagonized Cain Lorifer repeatedly, while I told you to learn more from this one and see the chance of an alliance. However, any form of relationship between that man and me has been tainted by your actions.
That voice belonged to one of the greatest geniuses that the Hellblazer family had seen in its life, Magnus Hellblazer. He had commanded Amos to come to his training room immediately after this one arrived in the Hellblazer sector, and once they were alone, began to attack full of killing intent. Amos wanted to explain, but Magnus managed to find an opening in his defense, unleashing a point-blank explosion in the center of his chest.
Oh,
Amos screamed in pain as the blast pushed him against a wall. He was not able to take a single breath of air before Magnus landed a vicious kick on his right knee, shattering the leg. Before Amos could say another word, Magnus grabbed his neck and raised him into the air.
you are not foolish enough to ignore my words, which means you are working for someone else, maybe one of my brothers.
Magnus's voice was cold, and the killing intent in his eyes exploded, making a flash of powerful golden light appear on them for an instant. The terror in Amos's eyes exploded as he heard that. He could not believe someone so young would be so smart and decisive.
In any case, you are no longer useful to me.
Amos wanted to beg for mercy, but the grip on his neck was too strong. The fear in his eyes grew more and more potent as he felt the energy in Magnus' hand rising.
Boom.
Magnus unleashed such a powerful explosion with the hand that held Amos' neck that there was nothing left of the head of this one. After killing Amos, Magnus' face grew pale, and a sense of fatigue assaulted him. He was strong, but totally overpowering a wave champion was not easy.
HMPH trash. It seems that I need to clear the pests within the house before taking care of the ones outside.
Magnus threw Amos headless corpse into the magma before continuing training. There were 3 people in a large throne room. One was a young woman with short black hair and a dark green aura, while the other was a middle-aged man nearly 2 meters tall with golden hair. As for the last one, he was sitting on the throne, shadows covering his figure, letting the Duke see nothing but his golden pupils. Although his figure was hidden, his aura was clear as day, and being in their presence made the Duke feel anxious. He was like a natural disaster in human form, with a power that the woman and middle-aged man could not even comprehend.
You are Iris Zurong, right? Yes, Your Highness.
If Cain were here, he would have recognized the young woman that kneeled before the throne as the one he helped during the events of Saharo City.
Talon, she is your protégé, right?
The middle-aged man bowed toward the man on the throne before answering.
Yes, Your Highness. Iris has been part of our force since her infancy, after members of the organization killed the people of her city, including her family. She had shown moderate talent before, but her status rose greatly after her mission in Saharo City, and I decided to take her under my wing. She was captured but managed to turn the tables, escaping with a new lineage. The details were sent to our logistics branch shortly after she returned.
The man on the throne focused on Iris again, and this time a powerful silver force field flooded the room. That ego wave had immense power, making the walls tremble and nearly suffocating the duo. Luckily for Iris and Talon, the ego wave grew calm the next second, allowing them to relax.
According to your report, the reason you were able to gain your current lineage and escape from that place, despite being surrounded by hundreds of enemies, was due to a person that calls himself king.
A small smile appeared on Iris' face as she heard that name again, and it was clear that the young woman had not forgotten about the powerful and kind man that saved her life when all seemed lost.
Yes, Your Highness. King was able to fix the flaws in my genes only using his ego wave and hacked into the underground city security system, generating a sequence of explosions that allowed me a path to the outside.
The man on the throne stared at Irin for a moment before nodding.
For him to fix your genetic flaws with only his ego wave, he must have been a powerful saint genetic coder. Are you sure there are no more clues about his identity? Maybe some that you only realized after writing your report.
The golden force field concentrated around Iris, allowing the man on the throne to not only see her face, but also to feel her heartbeat and detect the electrical activity in her brain. Iris adopted a solemn attitude as he went through her memories, trying to figure out if she had overlooked anything, but nothing came to her mind after an entire minute.
I am sorry, Your Highness, but nothing is left for me to share. All I remember and learned from King in my report.
The man's golden eyes focused on Iris before nodding. He was sure the woman was not lying to him, and she had no more information about King.
The way he behaved and his moniker, I cannot help but think you were in the presence of one of the Dark Kings.
Talon's eyes widened when he heard the man on the throne use the term Dark Kings.
Your Highness, that is information Iris has no clearance to attain.
The middle-aged man's words might be misleading, but he was actually trying to protect Iris. Sometimes, too much information could lead to danger.
Her talent, cultivation, and merits granted her the right to learn about this.
Talos dared not refuse the man on the throne and nodded before turning toward Iris.
The Dark Kings are the shot callers in the organization. There are supposed to be 10 of them, each a titan with a battle power that surpasses most of the Sector Dukes.
Iris' eyes widened as she heard that. The Sector Dukes were supposed to be the strongest warriors of the Godslayer humankind empire, but the organization had even stronger people. However, something else shocked the young woman and made her frown.
Impossible, King is not that type of person. Why would he attack his people to help me? There must be a mistake.
Iris shouted toward the man on the throne, making Talos react harshly.
Watch your mouth.
Before things could escalate, the man on the throne raised his hand, stopping both.
The organization is not a monolith. There are clashes between the Dark Kings, just like those between Sector Dukes. Of course, this is only a hypothesis based on very little information, and I could be wrong. However, even if I wasn't, that doesn't mean King would be our enemy. Being part of a bad group doesn't instantly make you bad. Sometimes people have no choice in that matter.
There was a profound sense of wisdom in the words of the man. It was clear that his way of seeing things was beyond just black and white. Iris' eyes widened as she heard that. While she hated the organization, she was able to understand what the man wanted to share with her.
In any case, you have a new mission now. Find King and bring him to us. An ally like him will improve our chances in future battles against the organization.
Iris smiled and bowed. Finding her savior and thanking him in person was something she really wanted to do. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 247, Empyrean Sun. A young man was floating in the sky, looking at a massive river that extended as far as the eye could see. Despite being described as a river, it was larger than most oceans of the Old World, but that was not the most amazing part. What truly drew awe in the hearts of everybody that saw it was that it was fueled entirely by pure blood. The young man was nearly 2 meters tall despite only being 17. He had a handsome face with sharp brows and wore a red robe covered in golden runes. His eyes were closed, so he was not admiring the view of that massive river of blood, but using it as an energy source. His body generated a devouring force that brought streams from the river into his rebirth heart. Suddenly, a middle-aged man appeared behind the young man, and when he saw how this one brought those streams of blood into his body, pure awe appeared in his eyes. The middle-aged man knew how toxic and chaotic the energy inside that blood was, and that even wave kings were careful when using it. But the young man showed nothing but calmness.
Is there something you need to share with me, Ezra? The young man's voice was soft and calm, yet it carried such a powerful intent that made the middle-aged man feel nervous despite his early wave king cultivation.
Young Lord, I have learned the reason why the Blood Duke left for Blade Mountain. It all has to do with a person named Cain Lorifa. To protect this one, Blood Duke killed a powerhouse of the Martel family and severely injured their High Elder.
The peace and calm in the young man faded once he heard the name Blood Duke, and he adopted a solemn attitude as they carried on.
Tell me more. I assume you have investigated that person already. Yes, young Lord Zima. Cain Lorifa, 16 years old, a vice captain from the Imperial Lightning Fort, level 8 wave warrior with flawless marrow, reached the 3rd level of Blood Hand, secured the natural inheritance of Blade Mountain, and has in his possession a natural holy weapon. According to my assessment, his current battle power will allow him to defeat middle wave champions and fight those at the late stage. His current talent would grant him a free pass to the peak of wave champion and a high chance of becoming a wave king. His talent in the ego eternal path of power is even more remarkable, with the idea he reached the middle wave champion already circulating among powerhouses. By all measurements, he is a Tier 1 genius.
Ezra did not discourage Cain or look down on this one just because they were on opposite sides. Disparaging your opponent while exalting your own achievements was something only those without trust in themselves would do. Zima knew he could trust Ezra for this type of task, which was why he had trusted that the information was correct.
I see. Cain Lorifa is indeed a genius, and his mastery over Bloodhand is better than most of the so-called Blood Children. Still, he is not part of us, and his inclusion would only lead to future weakness. Diversity might be a source of strength in most of the Empire, but it would only lead to weakness in Blood Sea. That is something the Blood Lord refuses to accept.
Zima softly shook his head, but focus returned to his mind the next second.
Ezra, establish a communication channel with the Martel family and see how angry they are about the actions of the Blood Duke.
The middle-aged man's eyes narrowed as he heard that, and he did not need more words to understand what Zima meant. After a short bow, he flashed away, ready to fulfill the task. Zima was left alone, and he slowly opened his eyes, revealing blood pupils, and what was even more impressive was the golden light in them that was the physical manifestation of his willpower. Despite being just 17 years old, the young man had already entered mind over body. By the intensity of that golden light, it was clear his willpower had already surpassed the wave champion rank limit. Cain was oblivious to the multitude of geniuses making moves due to his action, but it could not bother him even if he knew. He had reached the Imperial Lightning Fort 2 days after gaining the natural inheritance by tagging along with Olivian and Zarak, which used a ship that moved much faster than a star cruiser. According to what the duo told him, his achievements during the hunt were nothing short of extraordinary, and the collapsing Lightning Duke needed to talk with him. Cain was told to wait in his room until the Sector Duke summoned him, and he had no problem with that since the orb of red light inside his soul dimension kept trembling. Once Cain was alone, he shut down all communications and told the system to only pass through those related to the collapsing Lightning Duke. Then he closed his eyes, and he could see his alter ego in that darkness. The golden humanoid that hid in the deepest part of Cain's soul and guarded the massive gates opened his eyes and focused into the distance as he saw the orb of red light unleash its energy.
Brat, you are ready to start cultivating your visualization technique.
Apex could not help but feel nervous as he saw that since he knew very well the uniqueness of Cain's alter ego and how the Red King's ego wave influenced it, Cain could not help but frown when he heard that.
Apex, are you not supposed to be able to read my thoughts?
Cain never needed to share his plans with Apex out loud, since this one could read his mind, which was why he found that question so odd.
HMPH, Brat, I read your thoughts by interpreting the waves of your souls, but that requires focus, something I cannot give when I am in the midst of hacking or helping the system to carry on with battle formation and the likes. Not to mention that the more powerful your soul becomes, the harder it will be for people to read your thoughts. Oh, I see.
Although learning about Apex's limitations would have excited Cain and filled his mind with all sorts of plans for using it, now it was interesting and nothing more. The relationship between him and Apex had grown a lot from the moment they met, and Cain would not hesitate to put his life in the hands of the system spirit. A smile appeared in the golden humanoid as he focused on Cain's soul and perceived the feeling and thoughts of this one. Knowing the level of trust that Cain put in him calmed some of the worries of the system's spirit.
I felt my alt ego had grown large enough during the clash with that old man's ego wave. I just need to let go of my mind, and the name will come on its own.
The first step to channeling the power of your alter ego was to obtain its name, and Cain was finally ready to do it. He closed his eyes, letting go of everything that was not the red orb, and saw how this one began to change. The energy in the red orb was a duality, with one side full of life and the power of growth, while the other had nothing but destruction and the force of oblivion. Slowly the red sphere grew from a grain of rice to the size of an apple, and that was far from all since the duality of its forces was no longer in a chaotic fusion state. Instead, the power of life and destruction split, generating what seemed to be a yin-yang symbol. And just like in one, there was a spot containing the energy of the other on each side. It was at that point that the alter ego unleashed waves of radiation that began to flood Kane's soul dimension. The growth of the alter ego was the growth of willpower that translated into the growth of the soul. Kane showed utter bliss as the alter ego radiation made his soul grow stronger, and slowly a name came to his mind. It was the name of his visualization technique, which embodied the path of his ego-eternal path of power.
Empyrean Sun. Kane uttered those two words, and the next second, a golden flame full of vitality flooded the inside of his body. It filled him with incredible energy and stamina, making him feel it could heal any damage as long as a single cell of his body was left. Of course, that feeling was an exaggeration brought by the sudden burst in vitality, but Kane was sure that if he had this power during his fight with the Sod Avatar, he would not have ended in such a pathetic state at the end of the battle. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 248, Wave Champion Soul Foss. Kane nearly lost himself in the golden flame that ran through his veins. Of course, they were not really flames, but a manifestation of the positive side of his alter ego. He took a deep breath, rescinding the flames back to the crimson orb, before closing his eyes again and focusing on the other part of his alter ego. The intent of the left side of his alter ego carried a sense of annihilation and domination. It was a power that sought to wrang everything and destroy those that did not submit. Unlike what one would expect from a power emanating such intent, there was no evil or malice. It was like a force of nature, fulfilling its purpose without emotions. Kane could not help but feel odd about that side of his alter ego, since it meant that a part of his psyche saw him as an absolute ruler and that all life forms should bow toward him. He was sure to never have felt like that in his time on Ether, but he could not say the same about his life as the Red Kings. The feeling of supremacy above all things that he felt inside that dream was still clear in his mind. Everything was beneath him, and that was the right order of things. That state was not sociopathy, meaning that relationships still had meaning, but they only had it as long as they were favorable or had some use. If a person went away, regardless of their meaning or how important they once were, they would no longer matter. A life with no pain. A mind focused on a single task with no distractions. Kane's body shivered as that thought crossed his mind, and he felt a powerful temptation to give in. If he followed that path, his path to power and glory would be much easier, but he did not want to accept that state of mind. After all, that path would mean that all the pain he felt for the death of friends like William, partners like Beals, or family like his father, would vanish, and they would no longer matter since they were no longer with him. Kane's eyes grew sharp as he focused his mind, no longer allowing the intent of the dark side of his alter ego to distract him, and he finally sought to channel its power. As a duality alter ego, Kane would gain two sets of abilities from it, which sounded amazing, but there was a problem. Unlike the bright side of the Crimson Orb, which he could channel effortlessly, trying to mobilize the dark side was like asking a child to raise a car. Kane could feel the power in the Crimson Orb's dark side, but there was resistance from it, and he lacked the brute power to overcome it. A frown appeared on his face since this made no sense. The alter ego was the metaphysical manifestation of his personality and ego, belonging only to him, so there was no sense in this one resisting his command. Unfortunately, Kane had no one to ask for guidance since there was no one that could help him solve the mysteries of a duality alter ego.
Order.
Kane sighed, but he soon smiled again since the power of the bright side of his alter ego was terrific. He took a moment to analyze the state of his body. The golden flame was just the active state, but an alter ego also had passive abilities, like Zarak's oceanic constitution. It would be hard to measure those changes with accuracy since it was hard to detect even for someone with an ego wave like him, but luckily there was a tool inside his soul capable of doing it with immense precision.
System, analyze my body for changes after the birth of my alter ego.
Like always, the absolute life form system carried on with the task immediately after Kane's command. Analyzing vessel for changes. Analysis of vessel completed. Vessel's body finds itself in a state of constant cellular excitation, steadily improving his physical constitution. Vessel ability to recover from fatigue improved by a 150%. Vessel's energy pool renewal improved by 100%. Vessel's cellular regeneration improved by 50%. Kane showed a radiant smile full of thrill as he realized how much his body improved. His stamina and energy pool would now recover much faster, allowing him to fight for a much longer period of time. Although some might want improvement focused on offensive abilities, Kane had already reached his zenith in that aspect due to his mastery over Wave Cloak and Wave Burst and abilities like Usura Farm and Blood Hand. What he really needed was a body that could endure that level of stress and pressure without breaking apart, and his alter ego just gave him one. Now he could use Second Gear and Blood Hand, not like trump cards, but as basic techniques during a battle without the risk of leaving hidden injuries on his body. Kane calmed his heart after a few seconds, but the thrill in his heart would not go away so easily. I should give it a name. Now that the name of the visualization technique was forged, Kane needed to give his alter ego a name that would change as it evolved. As he focused on the Crimson Orb, Kane could not help but think it resembled a seed, and as soon as that thought crossed his mind, the alter ego adopted the shape of a seed. He was a little surprised but smiled as it made his decision easier.
Sunseed.
That would be the name of the Crimson Seed inside his soul dimension from now on, and it would evolve alongside its power. Kane rose from his meditation stance and looked around him before letting go of his body and focusing on his mind. A visualization technique could grant your body great powers and unique supernatural abilities. Still, its true goal was the growth and improvement of the ego eternal path of power. Kane's eyes glowed with a powerful red light as he unleashed his ego wave. A mighty red force field emerged from his mind and soon spread across his room before piercing through the area where vice captains resided. Many soldiers were shocked by the sudden emergence of the red force field, and a sense of awe assaulted their hearts as they saw how it began to rise into the sky. It did not take long for the red force field to rise 500 meters, but that was far from all, as it kept growing more and more, like a mighty red dragon that was aiming to sunder the sky. Finally, it reached its zenith, and everybody in the Imperial Lightning Fort could see a red force field that extended 5,000 meters. Zarak was in training when he felt that ego wave, and a smile appeared on his face as he saw that red dragon. It was clear to him that Kane had finally begun to harness the power of the alter ego and could use free ego at the level of a true middle wave king. The red force field did not remain for long and soon returned to its origin. All the soldiers started toward that residence, and their eyes showed a sense of complete awe and wonder. Kane Lorifer had already become a legendary figure in the hearts of most soldiers, having emerged from the most humble of backgrounds and rising into the sky in just 2 years. Despite only being a vice captain's, no captain actually dared to command him, and even majors were reluctant to give him an order since there was no way to say what type of rank he would get after the merits gained during the hunt. Kane was ecstatic as he felt the power of his ego wave. He felt his mind working much faster, and his ability to understand the mechanics of his body improved significantly. The golden humanoid inside Kane's soul dimension saw how the energy force field that was Kane's soul trembled for a second before evolving.
Haha, brat, you are really good. Your soul force evolved to that of a wave champion.
Kane was taken back to reality by Apex's words, and as he comprehended what that meant, a sense of absolute wonder assaulted him. His body had crossed into the realm of Wave Champion a long time ago, and his willpower was already at a much higher realm, but the soul was the core of an individual's existence. Improving your soul force beyond your cultivation requires incredible lucky chances and supreme effort. Kane's ego wave constantly nurtured his soul force, and the lucky chances he got during Blade Mountain's natural inheritance were of immense help. The massive improvement of his ego wave gave him the final push and helped Kane's soul force to evolve beyond the limitation of a wave warrior, rising to the wave champion. There were many benefits with a mightier soul force, but the one that really thrilled Kane was something only he had.
Since my soul force is at the wave champion rank, doesn't that mean I can awake another module?
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 249, Facing the Collapsing Lightning Duke.
Since my soul force is at the Wave Champion rank, doesn't that mean I can awake another module?
Modules were the core components of the Absolute Life Form system, and each was incredibly powerful and helpful. There was not a day that Cain did not actively use the AI chip module. While his reliance on the genetic coda module had diminished lately, he did not forgo that this one was the reason for his superb talent as a genetic coda. Not to mention it was thanks to this one that he managed to carve a plan to escape the underground Sahara city. The limitation regarding numbers and power of the Absolute Life Form Systems modules was related to his soul force, which should usually grow with each cultivation realm. Now that his soul force evolved to the Wave Champion rank, he should have the capacity to not only evolve the genetic coda module, but also unseal the next one.
That is right, Brat. Since your soul force rose to the Wave Champion rank, your soul is strong enough to endure the pressure of releasing a new module.
Cain could not control the thrill in his heart as he heard Apex's words. The powers of the modules defied logic, and he was sure the next one would not be less amazing than the other two.
System, how much destiny force do I have?
Cain had not been paying too much attention to his destiny force lately since there was no need to use it, and he had allowed it to stock up. Yet, now it was finally the time to use it. The Absolute Life Form system answered Cain's question like always. Destiny force, 9824. That was a massive number, more than 9 times larger than the one he got a year ago after killing the Wave Champion Atrox, but it made sense. After all, Cain had killed all sorts of geniuses, attained great lucky chances, and established relationships with all great powerhouses, raising his destiny to a whole new level. Cain smiled since that amount was more than enough to evolve the genetic coda module, take advantage of its new tools, and use the new module. Excitement and thrill built up inside Cain as he could not wait to command the system to unlock the new module and see just how amazing it was. Yet, just as Cain was about to command the system, a message reached his AI chip module, Cain Lorifa. The collapsing lightning duke has summoned you. Report to the Titan Tower immediately.
What the?
Zarak had already told him that the collapsing lightning duke wanted to talk with him, but he did expect the man to have such awful timing. He was just about to learn about a new module, something that had intrigued him since the moment he got access to the genetic coda module.
Although,
Cain could only sigh since there was no way a mere vice captain like him could make the ruler of the entire collapsing lightning sector wait. He left his residence, and since he wanted nothing more than to end this and attain the time to activate the new module, he flashed toward the Titan Tower at full speed.
boom. Boom.
The soldiers heard sonic booms as a figure bathed in red lightning flashed across the Imperial lightning fought at supersonic speed. Cain used Sonic Dash to move faster than the speed of sound, Mach 1, and his speed just kept rising. Although the Imperial lightning fought was larger than most cities, it took him less than 30 minutes to reach the Titan Tower. Even now, after all he had seen, Cain still felt a sense of awe as he stared at the tower. Not only did it hold the greatest powerhouses of the collapsing lightning sector, but it was able to protect an entire city from the attack of an Atrox god. Cain had just crossed the gates of the Titan Tower when his eyes narrowed as he saw a man standing before the teleportation matrix. The man had a bald head, a long beard, and a calm smile. There were no energy fluctuations around his figure, making it seem he was not even a cultivator. Cain could see the man with his eyes, but his ego wave could not perceive him. It was clear to him that this one was a monster above the Wave King rank. Not too long ago, Cain considered Wave Kings as giants that could do anything they wanted, but every day was learning more about the world and just how large it was. Wave Kings were certainly powerful individuals, but in the grand scheme of things, they could be considered powerful pawns. Of course, if a Wave King was just a powerful pawn, Cain was even lower. That was why he wanted to rise even higher, to the realm where even the sky would be beneath him. Cain did not lose too much time in those thoughts of grandeur and walked toward the bald man before clasping his hand and bowing.
Vice Captain Cain Lorifa reporting. Vice Captain Lorifa, my name is Luther. I will take you to see the collapsing lightning duke. Follow me.
Luther smiled toward Cain before guiding this one to the teleportation matrix. Cain's mental fortitude was much greater than the last time he used the teleportation matrix. Now, he could endure the backlash much better, allowing his senses to adapt instantly. He appeared in a massive room covered in obsidian crystals, with dark plasma covering the ceiling and several pillars made of a strange metal that exerted a strange gravitational force. At the end of the corridor formed by those gravity pillars was a man sitting on a throne. He had short black hair, blue eyes that glowed with white light, a muscular body nearly 2 meters tall, and his aura was so powerful that it seemed capable of twisting space around him. The man had a black robe covering his figure with 2 words on it: collapsing lightning. It was evident to Cain that man was no other than the collapsing lightning sector Duke, the strongest man in the entire sector, the one that killed the Atrox god that invaded Gaia, a titan of the Godslayer humankind. The aura of the collapsing lightning Duke was so intense that for a second, Cain forgot he was looking at a human, and what appeared in his sight was a bolt of black lightning that could level entire sectors. A red light appeared in Cain's eyes, allowing him to regain focus, and it exploded with even greater strength as he took a deep breath and began to walk forward. Luther saw that, and there was a flash of surprise on his face. The fact that Cain could adapt so fast to the pressure of the collapsing lightning Duke was impressive. The collapsing lightning Duke was also a little impressed, but then shock appeared in his eyes when he felt Cain's soul force and realized it had already evolved to the Wave Champion rank. Strengthening your constitution or improving your understanding of the laws was not too complicated, and while there were very few treasures that could help the Willpower, there were many ways in which you could evolve it, but the soul was different. Improving your Willpower would have an effect on your soul force, but that would be hard enough to make it evolve. Treasures that improved the soul were incredibly scarce. Even if you found one, it did not mean you could use it. The soul was fragile, and any type of energy sent into it could lead to severe problems if not appropriately guided. The collapsing lightning Duke deduced that Cain must have gotten great lucky chances during Blade Mountain's natural inheritance to achieve such massive improvement. In the beginning, there was only curiosity in the eyes of the collapsing lightning Duke since, despite Cain's talent, he was not unique, and there were several other geniuses at his level across the Empire. However, now that he saw the improvement in the soul force that the young man attained without the help of anyone, that curiosity transformed into interest. A smile appeared on the collapsing lightning Duke as the white light on his eyes grew stronger, and the next second, an incredibly powerful force field emerged from his mind and drove toward Cain at full speed. Cain's eyes widened as he saw the white force field coming his way like a tsunami that could sink entire cities in a second. He was not foolish enough to try and fight it, and instead unleashed his ego wave, covering his body with it, and continued walking forward. Luther was shocked to see the collapsing lightning Duke unleashing that white force field, and even more when he saw how Cain managed to continue walking beneath its immense pressure. Facing the Willpower of a legendary figure like the collapsing lightning Duke was not easy, but Cain's face showed nothing but calm as he carried on until he was 5 meters away from the throne. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 250, Sky Rising Pill. Cain looked straight into the eyes of the collapsing lightning Duke before bending a knee and adopting a knight stance.
Your Highness, Vice Captain Lorifer is reporting for duty.
The collapsing lightning Duke showed a small smile as he saw the solemnity of Cain's military etiquette. He nodded before waving his hand.
Rise, Major Lorifer.
Cain's eyes widened as he heard that. He knew that all his achievements and merits would improve his rank in the military, but he found it hard to believe he jumped past captain and immediately became a major. However, while he was very happy about that honor, he also felt conflicted. A rank in the military was not just a title, but a statement that you have made a difference, and your hard work secured the safety of the people of the Godslayer humankind. Cain became an actual soldier around a year ago, so attaining the same rank as some veterans that put their lives on the line countless times for the safety of commoners did not feel that great. Luther noticed the look on Kane's face, and his smile grew wider. The more he learned about the young man, the more he liked this one. It was clear to Luther that Kane was someone that really loved and appreciated the military, unlike Uriel and his kind, who only wanted to rise higher in the ranks to improve their status in their families.
Young man, I can see you have reservations, but believe me, you have earned that rank. The amount of military merits you have gathered is more than some majors obtained in their entire career. Of course, just the amount of military merits is not enough. Yet you have already done an excellent service by taking care of traitorous garbage and teaching a bloody lesson to those that thought they could look down on the military just due to the power of their families.
Luther's calm voice removed all of Kane's reservations about his current rank. The young man rose from the ground and bowed to the bald man before focusing on the collapsing lightning duke with a smile full of determination. The collapsing lightning duke stared at Kane for a moment before speaking.
What sort of deal did you make with the Blood Duke?
Kane was slightly surprised by that question, and the name Blood Duke was completely unknown to him. Only now did he learn that the man with whom he made a deal called himself Blood Duke. Although he did not like to reveal his business to other people, he was currently a soldier of the Imperial Lightning Fort, and a superior officer was asking a question, so he had to answer it. Besides, there was nothing wrong with it, and it did not affect the military in any way.
In exchange for his assistance against the Martel family, I promised the Blood Duke that I would travel to the Blood Sea and participate in an event called the Ascendance of the Blood Moon.
The collapsing lightning Duke and Luther were shocked to hear about Kane's deal with the Blood Duke.
Are you sure that is what the Blood Duke asked you to do in exchange for killing Alexander Martel and making Sebastian Martel run with severe injuries?
Kane noticed the strange behavior of the duo, but he was not in a position to ask questions at the moment, so he just answered the question.
Yes, I am unaware of the ascendance of the Blood Moon, but I must participate in it by order of the Blood Duke. Someone will come in a few weeks to bring me to Blood Sea. Once I am there, I will receive more instructions.
The collapsing lightning Duke and Luther look at each other, and there is a severe expression on their faces as if what Kane just told them would have severe repercussions for the collapsing lightning sector. Luther stared at the collapsing lightning Duke, and only after this one noted did he speak with Kane to solve some of the doubts in the young soldier.
The rise of the Blood Moon is a sacred ceremony that happens once every 10 years when the energy of the Blood Sea reaches its peak. Geniuses from the Blood Sea participate in all sorts of trials to prove their might. As for the ascendance of the Blood Moon, that is even more special since it happens every 100 years. At that point, the power of the Blood Sea reached a unique state, and only core members were allowed to participate. The fact that you, an outsider, will take part in it will anger some very powerful people, especially since there have been conflicts in blood, see lately regarding terms like bloodline purity.
Kane frowned when he heard that since it was clear the Blood Duke planned to throw him in the middle of a clash of factions, and the danger was evident for anyone. Still, Kane gave his words, and the Blood Duke did his part, so despite the dangers, he would not back down and travel to the Blood Sea. The collapsing lightning Duke saw the red light in Kane's eyes, and he nodded.
Whether you are brave or just foolish, it doesn't matter. The fact that you did not consider breaking your word despite the dangers is good enough for me.
The collapsing lightning Duke made a golden box with a dragon figure appear on it and sent it toward Kane. Kane could not feel anything from inside the box, and it was clear that the seal was extremely powerful. He stared at the collapsing lightning Duke, and once this one nodded, he sent his ego wave into the box. In it, there was a golden pill with strange red runes all over its surface. Kane's ego wave could rely on the same information that his senses, allowing him to perceive the intense energy and vitality inside the pill. The energy and vitality were off the charts, but the most impressive thing was the purity in them.
That is your reward for taking the position of N-1 killer in the hunt across the entire empire. Although it was the portal to that unique dimension, the one that killed most of the powerful wave champion beasts, you were the one that gained the natural inheritance, so I made sure they were counted as yours.
Kane gave a small bow to the collapsing lightning Duke, since he was sure many others would have wanted to give the credit for those kills to their sons and daughter. Luther did not waste time and began to explain the might of that small pill.
The name of that pill is Sky Rising Pill. It is a peak saint pill, and even among powerhouses it is considered a great treasure. A young genius can use it during their evolution to the wave champion rank. It will drive forward their marrow washing, strengthen their meridians, and improve their energy pool.
Kane was amazed by what he just heard. Any of those effects would be of immense help, but the three together would help him rise to the wave champion with a very powerful foundation.
The Sky Rising Pill is meant to be used during the evolution to wave champion, and using it on any other occasion would waste a lot of its potential, but you should employ it during your rise to level 9.
Kane was surprised when he heard the advice of the collapsing lightning duke. He did not blindly accept the advice or reject it, instead asking for more information.
Could you elaborate, Your Highness?
The collapsing lightning duke did not feel offended by Kane's words since, in his mind, only a fool would follow the cultivation advice of someone they had never met before just because they were stronger than you.
In normal circumstances, there would be no reason to use it during level 9 and waste nearly half of the pill's power, but you are in a unique position right now. During the ascendance of the blood moon, there is a special event in which you will have access to even better assistance to your evolution to wave champion. Of course, whether or not you can use it will be up to you. If you use the Sky Rising Pill during level 9 and attain that lucky chance during ascendance of the blood moon, you could evolve to wave champion with Void Marrow.
Kane's eyes narrowed as he heard that. He was not surprised that the collapsing lightning duke would know about his intention to attain Void Marrow, since it was something any genius like him would pursue. What truly mattered to Kane was the special events in the ascendance of the blood moon that could help him push his marrow washing through the final hurdle. He was not arrogant to think that he had already secured Void Marrow just because he attained Flawless Marrow at level 8 and had been looking for a lucky chance. But it seemed that the lucky chance found him this time. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates.